Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Liminal Pines. It's been a while. I know. I've been a busy guy, all right? There's a lot of things that I could talk about that I need to talk about. Uh, but we're gonna try and make this just a very chill drawing stream for the most part. I won't bother you all with the boring recap of what my life has been here recently, but I've been okay. Uh, Doing the live stream every week has become very rough, tough, and tedious. I guess every other week. It's something that has been a little difficult for me to do here recently because I've been focusing on like my actual like day-to-day job a little bit more, and that's been kind of eating away at my free time. And I've been having to choose what I do with my free time. And unfortunately, live streaming has kind of taken a bit of a backseat to that. But I still want to offer you guys, this experience that we got going on right here. Um, I've also been trying to put a little bit more effort into like the actual like YouTube part of my YouTube channel. So I've been trying out some videos that are a bit more edited. And when it comes to the art videos, the shorts, I'm trying to like do them a bit more consistently and like put a bit more effort into them, if that makes sense. So let me know how you think I'm doing on that. I'm having a lot of fun making them. Obviously, I'm working on a new one here that'll come out this next week, and it might end up becoming like a full video. And by a full video, I mean like a 5 minute video, because shorts, the max that you can do is 3 minutes, and there's like just a little bit more that I want to talk about in this short. So I want to be able to give that the best chance that it's got. So it might end up becoming like an actual like full video on the channel, which is good. And I need to work on my long form content a little bit more. I'm working on another long form video, like a 15-minute long video that's about Uncharted 4, kind of a little game design, environmental design talk. And the outline for that script is done. I kind of just have to go through and give it the polish treatment. And I got the gameplay recorded and everything, so we're good on that front. So look forward to that. Yeah. Ooh, one other thing. If you're watching this, please let me know how my audio sounds. Because I'm trying out this new microphone. This is a DJI Mic Mini that I got for my camera, so I could get some slightly nicer audio on my videos, and I was wanting to try it out on stream today. So if you hate how this sounds, please let me know. I can switch back to the regular microphone that I have here. But if you think it sounds all right, I'll just continue to use this because it's very convenient. Okay, well, let's get into looking at the sketchbook here. I just realized that I can't remember the last time I streamed was. It was, gosh, it was a while ago. So we're gonna jump back here to May 6th. That is where we're gonna go through. We're gonna go from May 6th to the 8th of July, and that's roughly 20 pages right there, just from this sketchbook. So we're gonna pop this camera down and let you have a look at what we got going on. Oop. Got my thing all weird here. kind of looks all weird and blurry. That kind of looks cool. Let's go ahead and get that. Okay. I'm having to adjust this a little. Oops. I need like a level for my little crane arm thing here that I use because it is not intuitive to level this thing whatsoever. I'm having to go based off of how it looks on the camera, but also how it looks like that. Is that somewhat decent? I think that's somewhat decent. All right, let's give you a little bit of a flip through of what we got going on right here. So the In Circles has been taking good shape right here. I've been writing more and I've been cementing that visual language a bit further, really trying to get a little bit more down to the nitty gritty of these things, but also learning how to draw these characters consistently. So you know, like when you see like this character, right, and it's like a comic book, right? They're never gonna look 100% consistent, but at least when you see these guys, you'll be like, oh, okay, that's Harris, that's Ulysses. It's like we can sort of like get a vibe on like what's going on there. Uh, and I'm not gonna lie, I've been getting a little bit burnt out, like drawing these characters again and again and again. But that's just how it is, man. That's how it's always going to be. That's just the nature of drawing comics. You're always going to be drawing the same thing again and again and again. Yeah, these two pages are just a bit more like expositional, kind of world buildy almost. I came through like a breakthrough on like how I want the circle to function as a place because it's kind of teetering on that generic post-apocalypse vibe, like The Last of Us or something, where it's just like, oh yeah, it's set in a reality where like everything's been abandoned, and that's cool, but like, how does that differ from any other post-apocalypse? And kind of the idea that I've settled on because I like sort of drawing a lot of trees and forests, and I think being in the forest is sort of gives you this like magical, whimsical feeling. The idea is that everything in the circle is, yes, abandoned and overgrown, but it's like more overgrown. There's a massive, massive forest that has grown inside the forest that's covering literally everything. So kind of it's like being in the Amazon. You know, if you were to get a sky view, you would just see canopies of trees and kind of roads and rivers cutting through it. And the idea is to sort of make this section of America feel wild again, to make it feel like the Amazon jungle. A little bit of Heart of Darkness influence there. Lots of sketches in here. Sometimes the sketches are less concrete. Sometimes they're more just about vibes. Sometimes it's just about drawing a certain object or a certain thing just because I felt like it. And then sometimes it has a little bit more direction. It's like framing characters, playing around with dialogue balloons, how I want to do dialogue, sort of thinking how these characters speak. What are things they would say and what are things they wouldn't say? Definitely trying to get better at perspective. But perspective is one of those things that I just need to keep on getting at because I'm going to have to draw backgrounds. And yeah, I'm just never going to be able to escape that. So, kind of, whenever I get the chance to do a little perspective, I am going to try and jump on that. And obviously, I'm not perfect, with it, but like I need to work on that. Also, character poses. The hard thing with like drawing characters is that like I can draw a person from reference, not from imagination quite yet, but I can like draw a person pretty good if they're on a sort of a flat background, you know, that's kind of simple, but it's like we need to go a step further. How can I draw a person and have them be inside a physical environment? So, like, how do you draw somebody sitting? How do you draw somebody standing? Like, how do you draw like you know the weights? Like, how are they like holding themselves? How are they interacting with the ground? And that's been a big challenge in this sketchbook. You can see my interpretation of Harris and Ulysses changes drastically from sketch to sketch, and I think I've got like Harris down a lot. Like I kind of understand his like facial shape. You know, he's got this square sort of look to him. He has his cheekbones down to the down to his chin right here. You were to look at a model right here, you know, you can see this part is well defined on Harris. So like he's somebody I can draw a little bit more consistently. You know, he's got this in the bridge of his nose. You know, he's always got this sort of like crookedness to it when viewing it from a profile. But it's Ulysses that I have trouble with because he follows more conventional Loomis methodology in the way that his face is drawn and the way that his head is drawn. He is proportioned a bit more naturally. You know, he looks younger. He sort of has the more generic sort of masculine jaw shape. So he's a character that I'm having a tough time drawing. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy drawing him, but it's one of those things that like once I find the instance where I draw him perfectly by accident, I'm gonna have to map out everything I did there and why I think it works so I can replicate it. Like this right here, you know that shadow below the nose, it's kind of not doing it for me. His head is too small right there for one. There's also that. Uh More plot stuff. Again, I'm maybe like halfway through this sketchbook. The further I get into it, the more it just becomes writing exercises and uh, putting down ideas. Again, we got more plotting right here, and this is just for the first act. You know, I've decided that I'm going to cut up this comic into smaller chunks so I don't have to do it all at once and be overwhelmed with it, have it be a gargantuan task. So I'm going to kind of, you know, work on this first act. And then I'm going to work on, after I get all of that out, I'm going to try and do it chapter by chapter. Not a weekly schedule, but, you know, we'll see how it pans out. I'm a busy guy, okay? But you can see sort of like the Seeker uniform has this jumpsuit like quality to it, and I like how the fabric tucks into the boots, and they've got this sort of striped thing going on just to break up the monotony of it being kind of just a black dark gray jumpsuit, right? And I'm also like trying to give Seekers, you know, there's some like lore building right here, but they have these chains that they carry with them of just kind of objects that they find in the circle, and it's sort of unique to them, and it kind of functions like dog tags. So you'll see them dangling from their belts, from their hips. I like this drawing quite a bit. I feel like I might even consider scanning this and making a print out of it. I think that all of the trees and everything turned out good, and I like the composition and all of it, and I think I did the birds very nicely. Ulysses again, he looks weird in this. I was trying to do this thing where I just drew the body as one big black shape. Not much to say about these two. Yep, and that brings us to here. The volume might not be what you expected me to get through, but I don't draw in this sketchbook every single day. I kind of have been splitting my art through a few different avenues. So sometimes it's in here. I have a few things in this sketchbook, and then I have like my larger notepad where I do like my anatomy studies, and then I have like this right here. This is like a larger art piece that I did for the most recent short. So everything kind of gets a little split. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at here. This is just some sketching, really, thinking about how can I draw this comic and like have it be like look like cohesive and tangible. Because I'm gonna be honest, like I'm not the most cohesive artist. Like I can't replicate everything I draw all the time. So how do I get past that? Oh, I just like have to practice more. Practice, practice, practice. And if you're not practicing, you probably should be. I'll show you a few of the sketches that I got in this sketchbook as well before we jump into drawing some trees. I haven't been dating these mainly just because I don't feel like it. Boom. So the goal of this sketchbook right here is this is purely a sketchbook, and if there's a sketch in here that I think turns out like remotely good, I'm gonna consider making it into a print. This here is actually becoming a print because I need to test it out. I ordered some test paper for like different prints. It's like inkjet paper, and I got a sample pack, and in that sample pack it has a bunch of different like finishes, you know, some are matte, some are glossy, some are like textured, like canvas kinda. And I'm gonna scan this and do some test prints to see which paper I like the best, and then I'm gonna order some more of that paper. We got this right here. And that's kind of all I got for that. Very light sketching in this one right here. It's not my daily driver for sure. I'll tell you what though, this pen is completely out of ink, and this is the pen that I am wanting to draw on today, so I am gonna have to do an impromptu ink refill. And now you all get to watch me do that. So I have this ink right here, and I've transplanted it into this plastic basin right here just because I don't want to dip the entire pen into that ink well. Give the piston a little twist. Extrude out any ink that we already got in there. Then I'm going to tilt it a little bit just so I can make sure that it's actually going to go through the nib. That was a pretty good pull. You can see there where beforehand it was clear. It's now mostly black, so that means we got a good ink pull on that. And this can be messy business, so that's why I keep a little roll of toilet paper, because I know I'm gonna make a little bit of a mess. Look how easy that was. I'll tell you what, I have been going through ink like crazy. Like I just ordered a new bottle of the archival ink there, and like I've already gone through like a quarter of it. If that's any indicator as to how much I've been drawing, I don't know what is. Okay. So we're all good there. Let me go ahead and throw this away real quick. Okay. What kind of paper do we want to use? I got this vellum Bristol. This is what I did the Alan Wake art on, and since we're gonna be celebrating getting back into streaming by using a piece of this nicer paper. And we're gonna fill this up. I'm just gonna show you how I draw trees. That's really all I'm going to do. And I'm gonna set a little 25-minute timer right here. And this is just going to make sure that I don't get too carried away. Then also, I am going to listen to some music while I do this as well. Sorry that you all don't get to listen to the same music that I do. But let's draw some trees. I'm just gonna go on Pinterest and just search up I'm literally just gonna look up trees, and the goal is to not find an AI tree, you know, because that is way too hard nowadays. I would say I have a pretty good eye for like sniffing out like what's AI and what's not, but every now and again, something like slips by me, and I start to question whether or not I actually have an artistic eye. I know there's nobody chatting right now, but I'm pulling aside my chat box so I can tell if anybody does start to jump in and talk. So I think we should like start off with kind of just going over firstly how I draw tree trunks, because I think you can break up the tree into two parts. You can break it up to the trunk and then the foliage, and you're not always going to be drawing both at the same time. Depending on how you frame it, you could just be drawing the trunk, or you could just be drawing like the canopy. Sometimes you can end up drawing both, just kind of depending on how far away you are from something, and each time it calls for a different level of detail, so to say. Okay. So here's kind of how I'm going to break that down, how I'll turn that light down just a little bit. I'm gonna pull you in just a little bit closer so you can sort of see a bit better what I'm talking about. I'm gonna like break down drawing a tree into a very simple, this very simple way, okay? I'm trying to make it so you can see that a bit better. This is a very light pencil, so hopefully you can see that right there. So I think of trees as little cylinders, because that's essentially what they are. And if we can break something down to a similar shape, we can understand the cross contours. So if a tree is just a cylinder, we know that it's usually kind of just going to follow this cross contour right here, going up and down. So this is kind of really all you need to know how to draw a tree trunk, and it's just kind of up to you how much detail you want to throw into it. You can throw in sort of this cross contour hatching and just have it be on one side. Let's say our light source is coming from like up here, right? We know that because of that, the shadow of our tree trunk is going to fall on this side right here. And so there's a few ways we can go up about this. If we were drawing the tree up close, this is how I would do it. I would just do cross contour hatching on that shadow side. And just by curving it ever so slightly to that side, that shows us a lot about how the form of the tree like exists in that three-dimensional space. And that's just a very simple way of looking at it, is just doing those cross contour hatches. What I do, and I'll pull up an example over here. So I like to take it like a step further, right? So you can sort of see how that philosophy goes into right here. You can see the cross contour hatches that go around the tree. Really just now it is just a matter of building up texture. We got our cross contour hatches. We're just going to go ahead and build up that texture. And you can do this haphazardly, depending on your reference. You know, you can follow that reference a little bit closer if you want. I'm kind of just freeballing this one. I don't have a reference necessarily. You can even throw in some stuff over here. Just because the light is coming from this side doesn't mean that we have to treat this as a flat cylinder. You know, if you add texture marks all throughout here, that's just gonna show to me that this tree trunk has a bit of a rough texture. You know, every time you see these rough texture marks going on right here, you can imagine that there's a bit of a, like a bump in the tree that maybe goes up and around. So this is just some way you can throw just a little bit more of an interesting form. And you don't have to go crazy. Throw in an outline if you want. You got to remember, this is a tree as well. We don't want perfectly straight lines with everything, so we can't treat it like we're doing like a technical drawing. So even just right there, I mean, you know, you build up these hatches, and look at that. You got a log. We'll draw on a few rings here. And I find with doing this method, if you are going to, you know, zoom in onto the actual trunk of a tree or a log, I find that the smaller your hatch marks can be, and if you build up those hatch marks through lots of really subtle layers, it creates this very like appeasing look to me, at the very least. Like it almost makes the tree trunk look delicious. I don't know if that's uh, an explanation that makes a lot of sense, but you know, when I see all these like tiny little hatch marks, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, that looks like it would like taste good or something. So that's how I tackle drawing tree trunks. I'll pull up my reference image and I'll kind of walk you through how I would draw uh, a tree if we were going to be drawing like from a reference image. And I'll do that right here below this. And I won't spend too much time on this. I'll make it relatively quickly. But I just got my reference image pulled up here. And again, we're drawing a tree. You got to keep things a little loose, right? You got to treat this as a big old organic shape. So don't be afraid to have some wobbly lines in there. So it looks like from this reference image that I have here, my light source is coming from this sort of upper left direction. sort of coming from this direction, kind of. So a lot of my shadows are going to fall on the right side of the tree over here. Another thing I'm doing here is I'm sort of separating my log form here. So we have the one cylinder right here, so you can imagine the cross contours are sort of going kind of like this. We'll say our horizon line is like right here, right? So everything below it, our cross contours are gonna fall like that. As it gets further up, they're gonna start to curve out a little bit more. So we have our wider form right here, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna treat these as sort of like smaller cylinders. And this part of the tree, since it's kind of facing in a weird angle, is kind of melding into this form right here. So there's kind of our kind of basic tree shape that we got going on right here. And all you really got to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw my outline here for it first. I'm making sure not to use a crazy steady hand because, again, we're not trying to make a car part here. We're not milling something that is supposed to be like perfect. It's a tree. As it grows over the years, it grows into a myriad of different directions. And then you just go ahead and then you just you got your outline. You really just got to start rendering. This is just a rendering exercise. Wait, we gotta chatter. We gotta chatter. Oh my gosh, why is my thing being frustrating? Yeah, yes, it is, Alan. Hello, Kadosh. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. We're just drawing some trees right now. I did a sort of like a little example of like how I render bark, and now I'm just kind of applying it to a reference image right here. So I'm going to go ahead and start rendering that. This is going to be very mindless in a lot of ways, so please, if you want to talk about anything while I'm doing this, don't be afraid to ask questions, or if you're drawing along, please draw along. What I like to do is I like to get my big sort of hatches out of the way. And then I'll go through and I'll start adding in some smaller ones. Remind you of the trees in Gravity Falls. Okay, okay, okay. You know, it's been a while since I've actually like seen an episode of Gravity Falls. Uh, but I think I know generally what you are talking about when you say that. The liminal pines because they're so liminal and addictive. Yes, you get it. Well, a lot of like I feel like my aesthetic is kind of rooted in sort of that you know, like Gravity Falls is inspired by like David Lynch. Oh, this smeared right here. That's such a pain. That's the thing about using this pen right here is that the ink needs a little bit more time to dry, but that's all right. But no, I really do like that sort of Pacific Northwest aesthetic, which is funny because there's a character in Gravity Falls named Pacifica Northwest, uh, which is something I did not realize until just now. But yeah, Gravity Falls is very rooted in sort of that Twin Peaks sort of aesthetic. Uh, and while I'm not specifically inspired by like Twin Peaks itself, I do really like that Pacific Northwest feel. So that's probably why you're getting that kind of vibe, and I do take that as a compliment. So thank you. And dude, I loved Gravity Falls when it was airing. Oh my gosh. Like I would be watching like theory videos constantly. You know, it's like trying to like figure out like the overarching mystery of everything with like Grunkle Stan, you know? You would have those cliffhangers where Grunkle Stan would be going behind the vending machine and you'd be like, "Whoa, what's Grunkle Stan up to?" Uh, what a fun time to be alive and to be experiencing media as a child. I was a child when it came out. By the way, I was like, gosh, I can't remember how old I was honestly. Didn't it come out in like 2013? It was probably like 11, 12, 13. Oh, I'm getting closer to 1K. When am I planning to remind you 500 subs was a celebration? Oh, yeah. I don't know. Well, I don't know if I'm planning like a celebration. My celebration for hitting 1K is to kind of just like lock in a bit more and like put a bit more effort into the channel. Like my celebration is like my promise to all of you to like keep on making stuff. We'll have a stream or something, don't worry, but I'm definitely like I'm feeling like my motivation to like continue doing this has gotten a bit stronger over the past while, so I kind of want to strike while that iron is hot. It came out in 2012. Watching Gravity Falls on Disney XD. Yeah. I am getting close to 1K subs though. I don't know if it'll happen. It'll probably happen by the end of the year. Hopefully, just me staying consistent and like making videos like that will be uh, enough to tell the YouTube algorithm that like oh my channel is like a real legitimate channel, or at least it is trying to be. So like hopefully it'll continue to push it to more people. I'm having to turn my page a lot right here, so I'm sorry if it's annoying to watch. keep in mind that every time you add like a different hatching direction, so for like this side of this little cylindrical form of the trunk, you know, if I were to go right here and like change the direction like a little bit more like that right there, that's gonna, it sort of creates a new form within that form, so you can sort of jump around a bit and make these sort of little microforms in the tree trunk. And we don't want to over render it, because if we throw in too much, we'll end up creating a bit of a lack of value contrast. So you want to, that's why we want to keep in mind, sorry, my timer here is going off. I'll set another 25-minute. So, you know, if you do too much, if I were to render the entire tree without regards to the direction of the light source, then this entire thing could end up kind of just looking like a big old mess. And so you're kind of having to walk that balance whenever you are doing rendering. It's definitely not something that I've quite mastered yet. And since this is just a sketch, you can tell how messy it is. But hopefully the point stands. If I were to be rendering a tree, I would be following these steps, but like I would be trying to do a lot more of a of a neat job. You can add little dots here and there. It doesn't have to be hatching all the way through. You're wanting to build up that delicious texture that I was talking about. Yeah, I definitely I do pick up a lot of techniques from Inoue, especially when I'm like drawing people, just because I like the way that he sort of hatches faces and stuff. So you are what you eat in a lot of ways, and I eat a lot of Vagabond. So thank you. I mean, I'd say like of all the artists that I've studied, I keep on coming back to Inoue the most, and mainly it's because, you know, when you're talking about like manga artists, a lot of the time they are just relying on like screen tones, like halftone screens. And that's fine because I want to do halftone screens as well. Those have their place. But Inoue definitely does his hatching first, and then he sort of is like, okay, how can I enhance this using the screen tones? And that's kind of the workflow that I want to take. It's always going to be like hatching, cross contouring first, and then using my halftones on top of that. And that's going to have to be a digital process. I'm still working out how I can do that consistently digitally. But yeah, thank you. I mean, I keep this manga by my side. Like it's literally like right here. Like I keep it right next to my thing all the time. But yeah, you can see he's always like with his faces. He's always got his cross contours. But then, you know, if you're looking at some of these, like this is a screen tone right here, screen tone, halftone, or whatever. He's not actually doing like an ink wash over this. This is a screen tone texture that is being stuck over it, but there's always those cross contours. And that's what gives it like such an interesting like textural quality. That's kind of why his art always feels so grounded, is because he is considering his forms whenever he is rendering. That and hatching is just fun. It's a very repetitive, it's a repetitive task. And that's kind of what makes it fun, because it really does kind of, it is just such a like turn your brain off kind of thing, and I mean that in the best way possible. But I think trees are a really good exercise in that, because you are paying attention to building up those hatch marks, following the form of what is admittedly a very simple form. It's just a big old cylinder, really. Don't be afraid to cross hatch either. Again, we wanna build up layers. And also, it depends on like the tree that you're drawing as well. Like this is obviously like an oak or something, right? This isn't like a pine tree. This is more of a deciduous kind of tree. Maybe its leaves would fall off in the winter. If you were drawing something more like a birch tree, I would probably tackle it more like this. I would kind of probably like have like my outline of whatever the birch is going to look like, right? It's kind of what like my birch tree would look like, and then I'd probably go about it like this. I would do my, like how birch, think of like Minecraft. You know how birch has those like black spots on it. It's kind of how I would do it there. And depending on if this tree is in your background, you don't need to over render it, right? It's like you could spend a lot of time making the most detailed backgrounds that you can, and you know what? It might just end up being a fool's errand, because no one's really going to pay attention to it, because it's not the focal point of your drawing. But it was like a birch tree. It's like I'd throw in a few like cross contours just to on top of those like black elements of a birch tree. And there you go. You don't really need to do anything crazy for that. Maybe if the light was coming from top right over here, you would maybe make that line a bit darker to show that it's your shadow side. And there you go. That's how you would draw like a birch tree. Or if you wanted to just draw like a regular tree from the distance, you don't need to do this business. This is like a gnarly tree. You could even draw it kind of like this. You could literally just, you know, there's the outline of my tree. We'll throw another one right beside it. Maybe this one's a bit thinner. You can literally just do this. You can just go. And sometimes that's enough. You know, it's the we don't gotta draw every single little tiny detail. Don't forget to stretch. It was to do a bit of a break, but you called me out for it. You're right. We should stop and stretch real quick. No, you're right. Thank you for looking out for my health. We'll set a little timer to do some stretches. Wait, I'll point the camera over here. I'll give you some stretching tips for uh for how you can for how you can do that. And I'll turn the blurred background on so you don't gotta see my mess going on back here. Way better. So here's what I do for stretches. So I'll this one here is the Lamy Safari. That's I just got it in a bold nib, but yeah, you can see there it's Lamy. So here's what I do for stretches. Uh, you sort of do like this right here. You kind of like make these like prayer hands, and then you're sort of bringing your arms close together, and then you're sort of bringing it down your chest, and you should be feeling a stretch sort of right here in your flexors, forearm flexors. And then it's all right if your like hands sort of like come apart at the bottom, but you really want to feel that stretch there. You can also sort of do this whole business right here. The biggest thing though is like stretches are really important for maintaining like making sure that you don't get like carpal tunnel or like repetitive stress injury. But the biggest thing that I found that help on top of the stretches are important. One, like you said, Kadosh, it's the way that you're holding your pencil. I'm a victim of holding my writing utensils too tightly. That's why for my regular pencils here, I have these little rubber things right here. And this forces me to, I can't hold it so tight. And I'm not like pinching the tip right here because I'll do that. So what this kind of forces me to do is to hold the pencil the correct way. And because I'm holding the pencil more from the center, I can't press as hard. And that's very useful. The only thing is that with these things right here, they're too thin to go around the thick body of the Lamy Safari. So one thing that I do to sort of combat that is, guys, why did he start praying? Because yesterday was Sunday, and yesterday was the Lord's Day, and I'm making up for it. So like one thing I recommend is that like when you're doing any sort of drawing, but especially if you're doing any sort of repetitive movement like hatching, do not draw from the wrist. Do not draw with this motion right here, right? You don't want to be doing this again and again because that is what is going to give you carpal tunnel. What you want to do instead is you want to draw from the shoulder. So if I was going to be hatching, I'd be doing this instead. Right? See how I'm sort of trying to keep my wrist in a stable position? You want to be doing that as well. I don't have an elevated surface, I'm drawing flat. If I was drawing more elevated, it would be easier, but you'll see me a lot of the time. I'll turn my page and then you'll see me doing this number right here. Not this. Yeah, this is Bristol. This is vellum Bristol. So it's a more textured. It's very nice. I like the vellum Bristol. So yeah, when you're drawing, definitely make sure to draw from your shoulder. And that's so like I was getting like really bad sort of like wrist pain, carpal tunnel, and ever since I started like incorporating stretches and like changing the way that I draw, uh, it's pretty much gone away. Now I really don't have an issue. I also I don't have it hung up right now, but I usually have a pull-up bar in my door frame right here. And whenever I do my little 5 minute breaks, I will go and like hang from it. I'll just go. Let me just go ahead. I'll go ahead and grab it and I'll show you. This is what I do. I don't know if you can see me through the blurredness. So I'll literally just go over here and I'll just hang. I'll just do this. I'll do a little bit of a dead hang. And I'll kind of do this for as long as I can, 3 times in a row, until I get tired. And I have these fat grips that are supposed to be used for, they're supposed to be used for like dumbbells. I use them for dumbbells sometimes, but like if you put the fat grips on the pull-up bar, it makes it harder to hold on, which is really good for forearm strength. So I have some crazy forearm strength now because of that. Let's get back to drawing. Let's get back to drawing. Okay. Do I live with someone? I live with my wife. I'm married. So we share a this is our craft room, and she sews and she like makes bags and stuff. So you can see a lot of her like fabric and stuff. We're in the process of like reorganizing a lot of things. So that's what all of that junk is. Like there's another table over here that's kind of her little workstation, but I get sort of like the corner of this room. It's not the most photogenic, but it works best for both of us. That's all that matters. Mhm. Um, yeah, I guess so. This is kind of like how I would draw like tree trunks and such, just kind of like the way that I like to draw them. Let me kind of show you how I do like foliage, right? You can do it in a few different ways. Keep in mind that this all depends on the tree. Every tree is going to be built a little different. So you have to consider that as well. So like in my reference image right here, my tree is sort of this triangular looking shape. Right? This is kind of how we're gonna like do this on a basic level. And then it's sort of got these boughs that are a bit more in shadow almost. I really like to think of like trees as like silhouette, you know, like we could have it like be like bogged down in detail, but really a tree should just be silhouette and implied texture. It's kind of really the only things you need to think about. Mary, I look like a 12th grader. I'm 25, yo. Wait, you're saying I have a youthful whimsy, a youthful whimsy to me? Because that's very kind of you. Thank you. So I am going to sort of just like think of this tree as far as like silhouette, you know? With a lot of trees, I like to do this little like puffy sort of like cloud looking shape, right? And again, this depends on the tree. This is just kind of the tree that I got in my reference image right here. I also like to throw these little circular bits and bobs in there. Because if you look at like a tree from the distance, it's going to kind of have like leaves that are on it that are going to look like they're like floating, but they're not floating. It's just from that distance, you just really cannot see. You cannot see the twig that's holding that leaf on to the tree. So that's kind of what that is trying to imply. Right here, I'm kind of just where I'm drawing these lines. I mean, this is a stylistic thing. You could like build up your tree with a bunch of like textures by doing scribbling and stuff. I kind of like to break it up more in terms of like chunks of shadow almost. Definitely not perfect with it. It's kind of one of those things where it's like just gonna have to get better at it through observation. But don't be afraid add in some darker little things because like maybe there's some bits underneath. This is kind of how I would draw a bush too. Oh yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I like making the shorts. I appreciate you for calling them a high quality. That means a lot because I go back and I rewatch them after I make it. And I'm like, oh, I this is something I would have changed. Oh, this is something I would have changed. Uh, so thank you. for being nice with that. Yeah, I do have a bachelor's in literature. Um, so I'm very like I do think of writing a lot. I'm very writing focused as well. So you'll see me touch on like both like art and writing philosophy, so to speak. Uh, my IG, believe it or not, I don't have an Instagram. I deleted all of my social medias like 3 years ago or so. So I am no longer on Instagram or anything. Unfortunately. So I'm sorry about that. Um, Stealing concepts. Oh yeah, you were talking about the short word about stealing concepts and making characters, plots, and stories. Yeah, that's sort of like a philosophy that I've adopted through my college experience because we talked about a lot of really famous writers, and it would be like, yeah, so just at the time, there's this other writer who had this idea, and this writer just thought to themselves, like, oh, I could do this better. So that's how this piece of literature came into existence. And I was like, that is hilarious. But it's good writing advice because if the greats do it, then you should be able to do it as well. And everyone does do it. Nothing is new under the sun. It's all it's all making it's all made up. Nothing's real. Yeah, so basically nothing's real. Oh, hello, Green Quetzal. Yes, you did make it to the live. We're just talking about drawing trees here. We're also talking about general YouTube stuff. One one artist that I am very inspired by, and you'll see me sort of like steal sort of like rendering techniques from them. So there's two when it comes to like drawing like landscapes and drawing trees and stuff. The first is Harry Frost. A lot of the times when I am like drawing a landscape and like in my mind I'm like, how do I want to render this? I will pull up a few Harry Frost images and then I'll be like, okay, how would he draw this thing? So Harry Frost is the first one. The second is Henderverse. Um, and whenever you see like me like hatching like this in part, it is kind of inspired by Henderverse as well, because they do this buildup of like small hatch marks for like everything. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. I want to do something like that. So a lot of the times as well, I will have some Henderverse pieces pulled up to the side whenever I'm like drawing like a tree or something or like a rock or foliage. Uh, I'll use those as sort of like references. Not references in the sense of like I'm copying this one to one, but reference as sort of like how would they tackle drawing this like one specific thing? How do I decide where the hatch marks go? For which thing? Are you talking about the like the close up of the tree trunk or the this tree right here? Like the full tree? because it's different answers for both of them. That's why I was asking. Because if we're talking about the tree trunk here, like whenever I'm drawing tree trunks, I treat tree trunks as a cylinder. The one on the left, the close-up, yeah. So I treat tree trunks as like a cylindrical shape, like that right there. So if we were to imagine the cylinder continuing on the other side, right there, think of it as like a soda can. So every tree is essentially just a big cylinder, and you just determine your light source. Like for this one right here, if your light source is coming from the upper right, you treat it like a cylinder. Your hatch marks are going to follow the contour of your cylinder, right? And then because a cylinder doesn't have a hard edge like a box, your shadow is going to taper until it becomes your highlight, right? You're going to have that sort of gradual transition. So when you're drawing like a tree right here, you kind of see how it goes from sort of very dark, but you still have those hatch marks, and it starts to get a bit lighter. And maybe you're seeing more defined little hatch marks describing the form, and then once you get onto this side, there's a lot of white. And that's kind of how I follow it right here, but instead of drawing one big cylinder, instead of treating the tree as like just one really long cylinder, like this right here, I break it up into a series of like smaller cylinders. So I treat it more like this right here. So yeah, like whenever I'm drawing a tree like this, instead of doing it, generally it is still one really big cylinder, but I take it a step further and I treat it like it's like a bunch of straws that are like being held together, and you can sort of like twist them and such, depending on the tree. But then when it comes to like this tree right here, I'm not perfect at drawing like foliage and stuff, and there's still a lot of different ways I want to try it out. But if I was going to draw just like a basic tree, I would probably, I would, you got your, then a tree really, when you get down to it, is just a bunch of spheres. It's just not perfect, yeah. So when you think of a tree, it really is just like a bunch of spheres. And let's say our light is coming from, you know, up here. That's our light source. Miles better? No, you could probably do better. You just gotta if you I'm sure if you practiced a ton, you could be like so good at drawing trees. Because I'm definitely not perfect like at all. So, when you're doing a sphere, right? If our light source was coming from the upper right, this is like kind of how your sphere would look, right? you know, it's like, think back to like how you would like shade a sphere just normally. It's like you got your highlight. So this is the part that is completely in sunlight. You got your core shadow, and your core shadow is like your shadow at its darkest point, and then you have the rest of the shadow. And the reason that the underside shadow is darker than the core shadow is because all surfaces are going to reflect light. So if you had light coming up from here, it's gonna come down right there, and then it's gonna bounce off that floor a little bit. So your shadow kind of ends up being a bit lighter than like your core shadow right here. That's kind of a little besides the point. And then you have occlusion shadows, and that's like when two things are touching, there's absolutely no light getting in right there. This isn't how to do a sphere. But we can take the same concept and we can apply it to a tree. So our light source is coming from up here. We're gonna treat all these little bits as, that's probably going to be underneath everything. We're going to sort of treat everything as a sphere. So and you can break it up, you know, you don't have to stick to a purely spherical silhouette. It's just we got to think of these clumps of leaves as spheres if we wish to like light them properly. So, and you can hatch this any of number of ways. Like for this one right here, I'm just gonna kind of just gonna hatch it in the direction of the light. So you can see this is a very simplified way of doing it, but the concept remains the same. Even for like this right here, you can sort of see that I'm following a bit of like this little curved nature right here, following my reference a little bit. Break it up a little. Right? And there you go. You got a little tree. Comes to drawing paper. You're always scared to mess up the inking process. I mean, you're gonna mess up. That's just how it is. But that's the fun part about like just drawing with ink, is that you make mistakes and then you kind of just roll with it. And it's like, if you can't improvise, you learn to improvise, and if you don't learn to improvise, you just try and do better next time. That's kind of the philosophy that I take with it. Very clear to understand breakthrough. Okay. If you ever have any questions, like don't be afraid to Don't be afraid to ask. Um, and like I said, it really does depend on like the tree that you're drawing. Let's have a little bit of a break, a little stretch break right here. When I come back, I'm gonna go get like a sip of water. When I come back, we'll fill in this little section right here. I just want to go over sort of like different ways you can tackle like a tree canopy foliage ways that I've seen. So we'll do that right here, and then we'll call it a full complete stream. So yeah, uh, go ahead, stand up, walk around for a minute, and we'll be right back. Hello, hello, hello. We'll go ahead and instead of a 25-minute, I'll set a 10-minute because I don't want to belabor this longer than it needs to be. Uh, Another way you could draw foliage, and this is a method that I am not the most familiar with it. Hello. Glad to be back. So this is a method I'm not the most familiar with, but I've seen done in a few ways. And I've tried it out a little bit, but I'll kind of try to explain like how it works right here. So imagine we have this big old tree right up here. And yes, I am using a reference image for this. So I'm kind of just getting the general silhouette right here. This is a very big tree. So this is kind of like another way that I've seen trees done that I find really interesting, and I have tried it out a few times, is instead of sort of drawing the full silhouette, you kind of do just a build up of a bunch of sort of hatch marks. And this is probably how I would draw a tree if I were like drawing like a bunch of trees in the background, right? These trees aren't going to be the focal point, so it's like you kind of do just need them to sort of disappear while something takes center stage. So it's like you don't want to spend a lot of time rendering something that is just going to end up distracting from like the important part of your scene. Which isn't to say that you can't have fun with it, you just have to be a bit more reserved. That's the fun part about working with pen and ink, is that it does kind of teach you how to be reserved with how you lay your marks. Use like 10 reference images every time you do a sketch. No, that's fine. You should be using like 10 different reference images. I mean, what I do all the time is I will find a few different reference images and I will like combine them in a lot of different ways. So yeah, like I will find a reference image and I'll be like, okay, well, I want to add something to this. So I'll find another reference image of like, let's say I was drawing like a forest and I was like, well, I kind of want to add like a fire lookout that's sort of like peeking out behind the canopy. I'll like find a fire lookout and I'll be like, well, I like this, but I want to have some like mountains in the background. So I'll like find a reference with some mountains in the background, and then I'll be like, okay, I kind of want to like have like the clouds look a very certain way. So like I'll find a reference image with some clouds in it, and it's kind of that constant like it's that constant like adding new things to it, which is what you should be doing. So like don't feel like you're not acting in the spirit of a true creative if you use reference images, because everyone uses reference images. Everybody uses reference images. Yeah, you can sort of do something that's more like this right here. I'm being very fast and loose with this hatching right here. So yeah, you could go this route as well, where like you can be a bit more stylized with how your trail looks. I've seen some artists also, they'll sort of let's say you were drawing like this ball right here of leaves. Let's go ahead and give it a bit more of a like a broken up sort of look to it. I've seen some artists, they will sort of build up a lot of these hatch marks like this right here. Again, you know, it's like one of the tools you have at your disposal with working with pen is that adherence to having interesting textures, you know? So I've seen something like that as well. It really is just kind of up to you, and it's like your style is like what do you rely on the most to get that information across, to get that information conveyed. Like, what is it that you like doing? You shouldn't feel like there's like a hard and fast rule for everything. There are like foundational things. There are foundational things that we should follow, such as like lighting, you know? Lighting usually is going to behave in very predictable ways. Forms are also very foundational, you know? You got your cylinders, you got spheres, right? You got your spheres, and then you got your cubes. And then you got your, I guess, cones, I guess. There's another thing you could use there. So you got, you know, your forms, and it's like these things are like your foundationals, your lighting and your forms and your cross contours, but then kind of like the rendering is up to you and the proportions are up to you. It's like, do you go more cartoony? Do you have more simple shapes? Do you make it look more realistic? Do you focus on texture, or do you focus on like value and like having a silhouette? It's like, how is it that I do things? Like, how is it that you do things? You gotta, these are all things that sort of go into developing your own quote unquote style. And this is just kind of, this is the way that I this is the way that I do like trees. So that's yeah, that's kind of my little tidbit, my little wisdom for the day. Thank you, Captain Cook. Such cool trees, yes. And I'm a sucker for drawing nature, you know. You'll see me use these techniques a lot. You'll see me use this technique every now and again too, where I sort of treat trees in the background as sort of like basic silhouettes, sort of like creating gradients with them, treating foliage lines, tree lines as sort of just these larger textural scapes, you know? I'm not like drawing like leaves or anything. I'm just kind of treating it as like a textural brick. You don't have an art style yet. You do things very symmetrically. Hey, symmetry is part of our art style. Subject matter is a part of our art style. If you're drawing a lot of the same things again and again and you have them in like a lot of your work, then that is part of your art style. It's like oh, this person always draws cars. If you draw cars a lot and you have them in everything that you draw, I consider that part of like your style. And then you're going to draw cars in a very specific way to you. But I'm not perfect with the way that I draw things. So like here's like an example of like drawing like trees in different ways. You sort of have this as like this big textural buildup, but then you have this tree as sort of you have a silhouette there, but then you also have sort of your shadows as kind of just this textural shadow block group. This one's focused more on creating that like form wrapping, right? And then we got back to you'd buy an art print from me? Well, hey, you'd have to help me decide which one which one would be worth purchasing. I'm getting my paper. I'm I've ordered a sample set of pages to do art prints, so I am going to start selling art prints here within like the next like month or two, maybe. It depends on how quickly I can order the paper. But hey, if I ever make a short and you're like, oh, this would be sick as an art print, please comment that because I have a lot of things that I've drawn and I'm not entirely sure which of them I should turn into prints and which I shouldn't. It's hard to get a gauge on that. So yeah, look out for that in the future. So like these are all done in like a what is this? This is 9 by 6, I think. Yeah. So this is kind of like a postcard size. I'd probably sell them in this size, or I'd like shrink them a little bit to be like a postcard. Um, I do want to do some larger ones too. If I ever do any more larger pieces, I will consider selling like those as like larger prints as well. How do I create texture so well with the hatching slash lines? Um, it's I won't explain it like too in depth. I did I did talk about it very specifically earlier in the stream, and I don't want to bore I don't want to bore everybody again. But really, it's just kind of you're following the forms. So like a tree trunk is just a simple cylinder, right? So when you're doing your hatching lines, you pick your light direction, and then your hatching marks follow the shadows. You know, you have your shadow, but it follows that cylindrical form. And so that's how you can simply think of it. But when it comes to drawing like trees like this right here, you sort of have your cylindrical form. What I like to do is I like to break it up into smaller cylinders within that larger cylinder, kind of like grouping a bunch of straws together into a trunk shape. And then you pick your light source, and then you do the same thing that you were doing with this cylinder up here. right? You're following that cylinder shape, treating it like a cylinder for each of those like tiny cylinders that you got in there. And then here and there you can throw in like little hatch marks like that right there. Give it some slightly more interesting, varied texture. And it's all about layering, you know, you build up the hatch marks. You don't just do, I mean, with this, like you could right here, but you don't just do this. It's like, yeah, technically that's correct with hatching, but you wanna, by building it up, you're showing that there's a texture there. You're creating that texture through building up those hatch marks. Does that make sense? Yeah. Regarding the short I made, you find it funny. You find yourself getting inspired by games and music even less than by stories, as I probably should. I mean, it just be like that. Don't let anybody tell you like what to be inspired by. If you're inspired by a walk in the park, that's inspiration, you know. Um, uh, you didn't expect to make a short out of your question on Discord. Well, you know, I figured like if you had a question about it, maybe somebody else would. And it's also something that like I have a lot of interest talking about. So it's like, why not make a short out of it? Why not make something? Because it's like it's fun for me to make and talk about. I'm sure somebody else out there wants to hear about it. But yeah, no problem, Captain Cook. Hey, and if you wanna see like how I hatch like other stuff, like there's shorts on the channel. Um, they're not like I'm not like doing a play-by-play of like how I throw down each line, but you can sort of see how I like start off and like finish a drawing from beginning to end. But yeah, so I think that's all I have for you guys here today. I'm gonna pop the camera back up here. Boom. Before I end the stream, does anybody have any like questions or anything before me? Because I'm probably gonna disappear off of the face of the earth for a little bit long, for like another month. Uh, Once the stream is over. No, I'm joking, but I do like streaming. I every time I stream, I forget like, oh, I do actually really like streaming. I like drawing and I like talking. I'm a big talker. It's just finding the time to do so. It can be a little strenuous at some points, but you gotta say drawing. Oh, don't worry about drawing. No, 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 no. You joined in late. That's fine. That's fine. But I'm glad you had fun. I hope we all learned something along the way. What will be the streaming rate? We can shoot for every other week, but I'm not going to hold myself to it. Because again, it really does just kind of depend on like, because my work schedule, some days I like work a morning shift, some days I work a closing shift. Um, so that can be a little inconsistent. But also like on my days off, it kind of depends on like if I have a lot of chores I need to do or if I'm like busy with other things. We'll shoot for every other week. But please, if a lot of like what stops me from like wanting to stream is that like I don't know what to stream about. So if you guys want a specific stream based on like today, like if you want to just talk about trees or maybe like you want to talk about rocks some other time, like how do you draw rocks, or if there's like a certain artist or something you want to look at, let me know, because the hardest part about streaming is starting the stream. Once I begin, I can't seem to stop. Pardon me. But, you know, if we could find a theme or like a topic or something, we'd be golden. And I can let you guys be the dictator of that. So that's another reason why I should join the Discord. I'll have a link to that in the description of the stream after it goes up. You didn't see my channel before you randomly joined live at the end, but you enjoyed and subscribed. Thank you, Captain Cook. Thank you. You're awesome. You're amazing. Every subscriber that subscribes to me, you're supporting a small creator, a self-taught artist, someone who's trying to make a name for themselves and who's trying to lead a better life. So I do appreciate it. A post or a poll for your stream topics? It's a good idea. You think I should do that on the YouTube community, or should I do it through the Discord? Because I think I can do it on either. I could do it on both, if that would work. I mean, it kind of just depends on like where like most of my people are, like where are all my people, because we have quite a few people in the Discord, but I know not everybody uses Discord. So I'll probably just do it in both, and then we can narrow it down from there. You don't have a Discord yet, Green Quetzal, you gotta get a Discord, please. It's really simple to use. Trust me, I am anti-technology. I suck with technology, and I figured out how Discord works. So if I can do it, you can do it. Trust me, trust me. But yeah, that's really all I have for you guys. In the meantime, yeah, thank you, Lizard Wizard. Don't worry, I do have time for the hobbies. Like, while I'm not able to stream frequently, I am still drawing every day. So just know that like I still find time for the art. It's just finding time for the rest of it is very hard. So I haven't given up. I haven't given up. The Discord link, it's not in the description right now because I forgot to do it when I put it up. I'm gonna put it into the description of this stream as soon as I finish here, or you can go to the previous stream and it's in the description there, whichever one you want to do first. But yeah. All right. Well, everybody, I hope that you have a suggestion, cross-platform stream on YouTube. You wanted to tell you. Ooh, yeah. I need to look into that. Because I have streamed on Twitch before. I'm not exactly sure how to cross-platform stream. I do agree with you. It is a very good idea, and like, I know people TikTok stream as well. It's something I have been thinking about, and that I will look into it into the future. I've thought about posting some of my shorts on like TikTok as well, maybe to potentially reach a different audience there, because YouTube Shorts is like kind of weird with the way that it pushes stuff to people. So I won't bog you down with all the stupid stuff. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. I'm gonna go probably do my laundry. That's probably what I'm going to go do right now. So take care, everyone, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.